Thank you guys very much. Thank you. Welcome to the Velvet Notes. Really appreciate you guys being here. My name is Bartholomew. I'm going to introduce these guys in a second, but I just want to tell you a little bit about myself and the program we have prepared tonight. This actually is our last performance on a 12-show tour. So we started on the 10th of June. And we're based in Miami, so we started in Orlando, did some shows in Miami, worked our way up Florida, and we went up to Durham, North Carolina. We were there last night. We're here tonight, and then we're driving back to Miami tomorrow. So glad we could end the tour here at the Velvet Note. I played here a long time ago when I was kind of first starting off, so it's great to be back. Appreciate all of your time and coming out to listen to us and spend your Sunday evening with us. So that song was a composition by one of my all-time musical heroes, Corea, Armando Corea. We're going to be doing a lot of his music tonight, paying tribute to him. Yeah, Corea. I don't know if anyone's got to see him live when he was around. He passed away a few years ago, and I think he has the most Grammy wins at any jazz musician. But amazing composer, amazing band leader, amazing pianist, amazing just like creative force in the world, and a big influence on me and my music and sort of my goals as a pianist and band leader and educator as well. So that was a tune he wrote kind of and so we're sort of paying tribute to Chick Corea. That was a song he wrote actually paying tribute to one of his biggest influences, Bud Powell, another amazing pianist. So that song actually is called Bud Powell. That's one he wrote quite a while ago. I think he first recorded it with Gary Burton, a great vibraphonist. They had a lot of duo albums together. And then in the 90s, he actually put together a Remembering Bud Powell band. And they played all of his music and also that tune that Chick wrote in dedication to him. So we're starting out our tribute to Chick Corea with his tribute to Bud Powell. But it's also a tune I really love to play, a really fun tune. We're going to do my arrangement of another one of his tunes next. This is... I think he first recorded this one with Stan Getz on Sweet Rain, and he recorded it on his album Now He Sings, Now He Sobs as well, and has recorded a bunch of other times. It's a beautiful tune called Windows, and like I said, I've been living in Miami for a little while, so since I've been there, I've sort of been trying to absorb some of the Afro-Cuban, Afro-Caribbean culture. So I arranged this tune with sort of some Afro-Cuban influence that you'll hear, some rhythmic stuff. But before we play that, I do want to introduce the band. So I'm going to introduce you to this gentleman on the bass. I met him in 2017. He's from Chicago, Illinois, and based in Miami as well. We met when he was getting his master's at the Frost School of Music, and I was getting my doctorate. He's now involved in a ton of different projects. He's going to be touring with a few other groups this summer, playing electric, playing upright. He's also working on some of the songs with them, and he's going to be starting his first year as actually a full-time professor of contemporary bass at the Frost School of Music, University of Miami this fall. This is Marty Quinn on the bass. This gentleman on the drum set I met in 2015 down in Miami. He's from Costa Rica and had been in Miami for about 20 years, I think, or so. And I met him, started seeing him around the scene. He was playing on all the gigs I went to check out all the top players in the city. He's also teaching at 3 universities as an adjunct, FIU, Broward, Miami-Dade College. So super busy guy, but one of the most reliable musicians, one of the best musicians I know. Amazing drummer, but also composer, band leader. He actually moved to California a few years ago, so he flew in for this tour. He met us down in Miami, and we've been on the road together for the last 2 weeks until tomorrow. Tonight's our last night together. So he is now assistant professor of jazz studies at Cal State Fullerton in LA. Rodolfo Zuniga on the drums. All right, this next one we're going to do is Windows. you guys so much. Rodolfo Zernig on the drums. Marty Quinn on the bass. Give those guys some love. So that was probably Chick's most well-known tune, Spain. So I like to kind of segue those two, Windows and Spain, together. One of the things I love most about Chick Corea's music is that there's this kind of like perfect combination of like accessibility, and you've got these hooks that you can just sing, and that people that maybe aren't into jazz, they know and they like, that are very just like catchy. But then for the musicians, it's like there's all these sort of intricate, complicated, weird, quirky things that he somehow makes, but he makes them super accessible and take these really kind of complicated concepts. He was really influenced by like classical music and Latin music and bebop and all that stuff. And he's able to take all these influences, but a lot of his songs are so like singable and memorable, but then when you actually try to learn them, it's like, man, they're really, really complicated. But he makes them sound so easy and so natural, so it's really, really beautiful. So I love his compositions and his playing as well. So that was a tune called Spain. We're going to continue with one of his, this is maybe from a little bit lesser known album, but one of my favorites. It's from Past, Present, and Futures. It's the Chick Corea New Trio. It was around 2000 or so, with Avishai Cohen on bass and Jeff Ballard on drums. And he wrote all original music for that group. And this is one he wrote, I think, sort of in memory of growing up in Chelsea, Massachusetts. So he calls this the Chelsea Shuffle. Thank you guys. As the Chelsea Shuffle, it's like only Chick Corea can make a shuffle confusing and hard to play. Normally shuffles are really easy. So we're gonna kind of switch gears a little bit. So going from that shuffle feel back to kind of some of Chick's more Latin Afro-Cuban influences. So this next one is one of my favorites of his. It's called Armando's Rumba, and kind of self-titled. So Chick's obviously nickname, his first name is really Armando, Chick Corea. So this is Armando's Rumba, and I forgot to say this at the beginning of the show. So I think if you guys haven't been here, I'm not sure how the rest of the shows go, but I know for us, we're having a great time up here playing. So if you guys, you don't have to be shy about clapping or yelling or whatever. You don't have to wait till the end. You can do whatever you want. So you're here to have a good time. We value you guys' time. I know this is our time is limited, and you guys chose to spend it with us. So we hope you guys are enjoying the music. Feel free to clap, yell, holler, scream, whatever during the middle of a song. You're not going to get in trouble if you clap before the tune's over or whatever. So we're pretty loose up here, having a good time. And this is our last show of the tour, so we're kind of ready to cut loose. So hope you guys are enjoying the music so far. Thank you very much. So we're gonna do Armando's Rumba next. Thank you guys so much. Armando's Roomba. So you can just hear some of the stuff we're playing. I mean, Chick's written hundreds and hundreds of songs, and some of them are so different. He has, again, one of my heroes, not just from the way he plays piano and his compositions, but the different projects he's led up to when he was passing away. It seemed like he was always doing something new, playing with younger guys or redoing old songs or writing new compositions, doing different projects. He would compose for orchestras, he would do solo piano concerts, classical jazz, free jazz. He had Return to Forever with the fusion stuff. I mean, he kind of did everything, and did everything really well. And so that's something, not only artistically, but just career-wise and just being creative and like always kind of moving forward and having fun with the music is something I always admire about him, because he never really seemed to kind of just settle and just kind of do the same thing over and over again. He's always kind of writing new stuff and always working on projects, and the quality in which he was able to do everything was just at kind of the top level, which is pretty amazing. I feel like he and Herbie Hancock sort of have this very similar kind of trajectory and creativity there. So, like I said, there's a lot of things I admire about him. One of the things is composing and the piano playing. So, what I mentioned before, we're just sort of finishing. This is the last show of our 2-week-long tour, and most of that we've been playing my original music. This one we booked sort of as a Chick Corea tribute, just so we can get you guys to come listen to it. Hopefully, you guys enjoy our music because I've only been up here a few times. Thank you. So it's kind of a way. It's hard to go wrong with Chick Corea's music. Everyone loves that, and including myself. So I've been doing a lot of that stuff down in Florida, a lot of Chick Corea concerts, and he actually lived in Clearwater, Florida, for quite some time. So sort of semi-local, close to Miami. But we're gonna do one of my tunes now that's sort of influenced by Chick. You might be able to hear some of those quirky rhythms. But again, I just like Chick. I try to write music, and he's influenced a lot of stuff I've done. And so one of the things that we're going to be doing is going and recording an album in July, right after we finish this tour. We've got kind of a week off. We've got a little mini tour after that, and they're going into the studio to record all my music. So like I said, we've done 11 shows. Most of that has been all of my stuff, so we're going to play a few of those for you, a few Chick Corea tunes, just to hopefully let you guys check out some of the stuff that we've been doing and some new music we've been writing. So this one I wrote at the beginning of the year. I sort of made it a goal to start writing music again after the pandemic, because I was writing a lot before then, and then I started teaching a little bit more online when all the gigs disappeared. I'm now a full-time professor at Florida Memorial University, which is a small HBCU down in Miami Gardens, which is pretty close to Miami. So I'm teaching there full-time. Yeah, I don't know if any teachers in the house, give yourselves a round of applause, but teachers are great. I wouldn't be here if it weren't for teachers and professors just showing me music and introducing me all that stuff, because I didn't grow up with a musical family or anything like that, so all the sort of opportunities I've been allotted have been through someone kind of showing me and introducing me to things that I didn't know existed before. So one of my goals this year was to start writing more music and then kind of revisit some of the old music I'd written before. And this next song we're going to do is a song called Balancing Act. And I wrote that sort of with the loose theme of kind of this universal thing we can all relate to, where we have 24 hours in each day, and you sort of have to decide where you're going to spend your time and energy for each thing. So that could be exercising, could be work, could be quality time with family, could be practicing piano or booking gigs or whatever. But you sort of have to decide where your energy and time's going to go. Especially with musicians, we sort of wear all these different hats, where we're practicing, we're rehearsing other projects, we're writing music, we're booking gigs, we're arranging stuff. So you sort of, it's kind of a mess, all the things you have to do. So it's hard to find where you're going to, balance your time doing all this stuff. So this is called Balancing Act. Thank you guys so much. As a balancing act is one of mine. So I'll just tell you a little bit. I'm not going to talk too long, but we're going to do, I think, 2 more tunes. Don't want to keep you too late on a Sunday, but just a little bit about myself and kind of hopefully when we see each other next. I don't have any merch or anything to sell you today, but if you do enjoy the music and my music or Chick's music, like I said, I've got a lot of different projects down in Florida, but one of the goals this year was to sort of transition from I've been doing a lot of other people's music, like I'll do like Vince Guaraldi Christmas stuff on the holidays and Chick Corea, and we've done a lot of like Thelonious Monk and Bud Powell stuff, which I absolutely love. But I've been sort of procrastinating doing my own music and kind of my own projects. So we're gonna, like I mentioned, go in the studio and record. So if you guys do enjoy the music, hopefully we'll be back, in a year or something to do a CD release thing if people still buy CDs. But I'll have them online too. I still buy CDs. I still have a lot of them. I still buy records and CDs and stuff. I bought like 20 on this trip so far. But if you do enjoy the music, one way to, don't have anything to sell you, but one way to support me is just find me on Facebook or Instagram or YouTube or any of that. You can just look for Zach Bartholomew. It's a long name, so I can give you a card and a QR code or whatever. You can talk to me afterwards if you're interested in kind of keeping up with what we're doing. We'll definitely be back doing this more and more, especially once I have the album out. So I'd love to see you guys again, and you can tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell your parents, tell your nieces and nephews, your enemies, your everyone. Tell them, next time you see us playing, bring them along. Come check out the Velvet Note, and there's a lot of great music here. Hopefully we'll be back here, and if any of you guys are from other areas visiting anywhere in Florida, I'm all over the place there. I have this, like I mentioned before, if it weren't for teachers, I wouldn't really be able to do what I'm doing now. So in addition to performing and composing and all that good stuff, I'm also, teacher, professor, and I'm lucky enough to have a grant through the state of Florida, Division of Arts and Culture, for my Jazz Access Tour outreach program. So thank you, yeah. I do a lot of outreach and educational offerings to underserved areas in Florida, and so I try to pair with different schools or teachers or communities, not only to do performances, but to hopefully go and work with the kids. I grew up in a very, very rural area, kind of North Florida, south of Tallahassee, so really, really tiny town, didn't know anything about music. So if it weren't for teachers, I wouldn't have been able to learn anything about the piano, learn anything about jazz at all. That was totally foreign to me when I was coming up, and so I really, really, really am privileged to do music for a living. It's something I kind of came into later on, but I really try not to take it for granted because it's a real privilege to be able to play music and play music with my friends, and especially my own music or music like Chick Corea, and especially for an audience. So thank you guys again for coming out. We appreciate your time. I say this at like all my shows, but it's a lot of hard work to make a living doing music. I'm very, very fortunate to be able to do so. But like I said, I grew up in the country, like on a farm, so I'd be out in Florida heat 10 hours a day, and that's hard work too. So a lot of things are hard to do. So I really am fortunate to do music. It's a lot of hard work, but there's a lot of things that are hard to do out there. So thank you for supporting us, and hopefully we'll see you next time we're around. We got 2 more songs though, so it's not a goodbye. But I just want to give you my spiel, and you can find me, Zach Bartholomew Music. If you search for Zach Bartholomew Music on basically anything, you'll find me. I'll be wearing a bow tie. I didn't wear one tonight. It's a little hot up here next to the kitchen. So we're gonna do another one of Chick's tunes. This is a song he wrote sort of in homage to Wayne Shorter, another great composer, musician who played with Miles Davis, who played with Art Blakey and the Jazz Messengers, who has his own group, passed away recently, and he wrote a song called Footprints of Wayne Shorter, and that's a really, really well-known tune. He recorded with Miles. He recorded with his own group. Man, we got some jazz heads in here. You guys know all this stuff. So that's like a kind of a jazz standard. Like if you go out to a jam session or something, you're like, hey, let's play Footprints. Most of the jazz guys on there will probably know that tune. And so what Chick did, he took that tune and he kind of reworked it and made it a little quirky and a lot harder to play, and he named it Fingerprints. So we're gonna play Chick's tune, Fingerprints. Thank you guys. Thank you very much. Once again, please give it up for Marty Quinn on the bass. Rodolfo Zuniga on the drums. Whew. Like I said, it's been about, this is our 12th show, so we've been on the road for like 14 days. I think it's rained like every single day. We've been driving all across Florida, all across North Carolina, Georgia. So it's been an absolute blast to be able to meet people in all the different venues we're playing and make connections there. It's been a blast to travel with these two guys and make music. Thank you guys. This is our last show, so thank you both. And you can see why it's so fun to play with these guys. It's everything they do makes you sound good. And so, so that was Fingerprints by Corea. We're gonna do one more tune. We're gonna end you with one of mine. This is like on the happier note. So, as I mentioned before, I have this grant through the state of Florida Division of Arts and Culture for my Jazz Access Tour outreach program. So I spent a ton of time in my car, and we've spent a ton of time in the car this last 2 weeks just driving everywhere. But I do a lot of shows like outside of Miami. So I'm based in Miami, and I've been performing kind of a lot on the west coast of Florida, Central Florida, North Florida, kind of all over. And you know, if you're not in Miami or Southeast Florida, basically you're just surrounded either by the ocean or Everglades, and so everything is kind of a far drive, like 2.5, 3 hours or something, or more. So I spent a ton of time driving across Alligator Alley, which is that strip of highway that goes basically east-west on the bottom of the state, right through the Everglades. So I'm driving on Alligator Alley all the time, and most, Florida normally is sunny except for these past few weeks where we've been driving, but so I spent a ton of time, and the sun's like either beaming down on my left side or my right side or behind me or in front of me, depending on the time of day or where I'm going, if it's 75 or the Turnpike or Alligator Alley or whatever. And so I wrote this tune sort of as like an imaginary soundtrack to just all the time I've spent in the car with the Everglades going by and cars whizzing by on my left or my right, or driving up through Central Florida or whatever, and driving to these shows or these gigs or these educational things I'm doing at schools. And so I named this tune Sunny Days Driven By. So I hope you guys enjoy. Thank you again so much for coming out, spending your time with us. It's been an honor to play for you. This is Sunny Days Driven By. Oh, and I almost forgot. Thank you guys. So please give another round of applause for everyone here at the Velvet Note, hosting us, all the servers, all the cooks, JB for doing the sound, setting everything up. Thank you guys for hosting us here tonight and making it possible for this to work. So there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. It's not just us kind of showing up and playing. People had to turn the lights on and vacuum the floor and clean the tables and do all that stuff, cook all the food. So thank you guys for all the things you did. Sunny Days Driven By. Thank you guys so much. Ronaldo Zuniga on the drums, Marty Quinn on the bass. My name's Zach Bartholomew on piano. Thank you so much. We hope to see you again. Hope you enjoyed the music.